A scene from Grandma's Boy. Oh, it gets up. Oh, it feels so good. Absolutely, that's a great start to the stream. Talking about another stream from a movie. Writered.
Okay. Freaking toilet won't stop running, so I had to go flap the handle.
Nice.
I know. I need to enact a podcast piss jug. Just sit here and still try to talk and act like I'm not doing anything. Yeah. That's awesome.
Nice. I like that.
My podcast piss jar.
Please get a ball jar, put it behind you, and put a piece of tape on it, and just write on it. Please do that.
And partially fill it with a dark yellow thing, just make people be like, "Jesus, dude."
No. Put $1 in it every time you have to go during a podcast, and then you donate that to like the Prostate Foundation for people that have enlarged prostates and have to piss too much.
It just becomes a bit. I'm like, oh, hang on, guys. And they're like, no, seriously, do you guys do you have a problem?
$700 later. Man, it's only been 2 podcasts. What happened? Jeez.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. What was that?
It was a great intro. Yay.
Can we call you the third wheel at this point?
I don't know if I want to be third wheel. I'd rather just be third mic, but whatever. I guess it's a car podcast, so wheel is appropriate, I guess.
That's right. Woo. Yeah, you turn us from a Hayabusa into a Can-Am. It's great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just as long as the wheel's on the rear, so we got a little bit of stability.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Or we could do the Polaris slingshot.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either or. Yeah.
Slightly more car-ish than a Can-Am.
I turn a dangerous podcast into a slightly less dangerous podcast.
I like that. That's right. That's right.
That's fair.
I'm disappointed in that thing that I didn't tell you about until 15 minutes before the podcast.
And why aren't you constantly on your phone refreshing the page?
That's right. That's right. I'm actually most disappointed in Elliott right now that he didn't have a swivel chair and turn around very slowly, maniacally petting his cat like Dr. Evil.
Well, I wish she'd sit on my lap and then it would be a better reveal, but this whole shoulder thing
that would be very Inspector Gadget.
That'd be pretty sweet though.
Yeah, it would be very sweet. But welcome. Thank you for being here as always.
Yeah, I love being here. I love doing this with you guys. And it's like we said, it's good to have the three of us again. No offense to Chad. You get along just fine, but it's a different deal when it's all three. Oh, look, the Volvo new merch with Cat is on. Oh, look, it's for my head. I'm trying to line it up.
Go back to where you were.
Yeah, I know. I'm screwing this all up.
This is my plight every week because my camera is never straight, and I'm just like, do this, and Chad's like, dude, just move you. You don't need to move your camera.
There we go. I think I've got it pretty lined up now.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
It's about how high neck I wear my shirts too.
Windows is insisting on changing all of my outputs, so apparently I've been muted this whole entire time. So,
nice.
Anthony, disappointed in you. I figured you of all people would go. So, I wonder, is there a way I can show this without showing everything?
Probably not. But what we should talk about is probably lots that's been going on with the guest that we have on. So you have been driving
a cat.
Interesting things. Not a cat.
A few. Yeah.
So I think the first one we should talk about is going to be probably the most controversial because Mustang. But
no, it isn't.
You just put out a video about your time with a Mustang Mach E.
I did. And Chad, I know he's foaming at the mouth, ready to talk about this. It's actually a video I shot a while back that I finally got to release. It just happened to work out really well. But yeah, it went live today. I don't know if you got to see it. I think Chad watched it for sure. You know how you guys do this talk show thing where somebody brings a book on and you're like, I loved it. And you're like, I haven't read this thing at all.
I will be watching it tomorrow, as I have had zero time to do it today, but I know it's out. As Chad did, I got the submission notification.
Good, thank you. I'm glad that's working. No, but I totally get it. I'm, like I said, I'm friends with YouTubers, and they're always like, have you seen the latest one? I'm like, no, I don't have time every day.
Exactly.
But yes, I rented a Mustang Mach E GT, which I feel like is important on here, through Turo last time I was in Scottsdale. And obviously Turo has been in the news for bad things recently. But I'd like to think this was some positive.
And you were shilling for that Turo sponsorship in the video.
I know. Well, it had not happened yet until, you know, that's the problem with filming things in the past. Sometimes terrible things happen, and then you don't know. But yeah, there's that. We've got to talk. We'll wait until Chad's full and ready for that. But the other thing I know you might want to hear about is taking the Prius around the track, which was quite the experience.
Yes, I don't know also because of what it was next to. Mostly,
it was insane, and it was such a wild thing. So if you guys, whoever's listening and watching, if you haven't seen the video, I was in a Hoovie's Garage video where we tracked his Veyron, but the first thing we did was basically him versus me in an old second-gen Prius, and it was just a hilarious juxtaposition of two vehicles. I mean, one of the most expensive cars you could possibly get, dirt cheap, 1,000 horsepower, 110 horsepower. I mean, you keep going back and forth, and it was ridiculous in every aspect. Not to mention just tracking a Prius, even without a Bugatti being near you, is just an odd thing. I'm pretty sure, and I said this to you guys, I'm really willing to bet some money that I'm the only person who has both drag raced his Prius and done like a full track day in a Prius. It's got to be very few people who have done those things.
You can probably count the amount of people that have done that in this world on both of your hands, if not one hand.
Exactly. And I mean, it's not surprising if I were saying, oh, it's a Viper, but it's, you know, I'm driving a very non-enthusiast car enthusiastically.
Right.
So
which can be a lot more fun sometimes, depending on what you're doing and where you are.
That is true. You know, getting in an Miata, it's always fun. But
that's right.
Yeah, the Prius was definitely interesting. It was funny because Tyler drove the Bugatti up there, and it's like a 2.5 or 3 hour drive from where we are. So you know, it was crazy. It was kind of raining and foggy that day, and I was just following him. So you've got Bugatti Veyron, Prius, drafting each other down the highway. And it was just so funny to see people's like, what the hell? Because it was like, I'm trying to think. It was like a Thursday. It was like in the middle of the week. It was raining. We were in the middle of the highway in between Kansas and Oklahoma, and there's a Bugatti on the road. People are like, what is going on? I mean, I would have freaked out too. I'd have been like, is that a freaking Veyron?
You know, like out of nowhere.
Yeah, and all of the ones that I've ever seen, I've seen them move at parking lot speeds. You know, like you don't see them mixing amongst traffic that can't afford to hit them. But
much, yeah.
It was a fascinating thing to stare at for 3 hours.
To be fair, that's everywhere the Bugatti goes, except for maybe like Dubai.
That's true.
Or like Car Week.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Flood Bugatti, correct?
No, that Houston Crosta bought that one. This one,
that's right. I forgot.
This one is, from what I understand about the history, legitimately owned throughout its time. So I mean, it had problems. Obviously, when he bought it, had like that wouldn't go into gear or wouldn't get out of parks, something of the nature. Mm-hmm. But they got that fixed to the tune of a lot of money. You have to watch his videos on that. But no, it's a fantastic, amazing car to be around and be in. I mean, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to see a few, but it's like you're always like behind red rope looking at it. It's so different to like touch it and like click a button and feel how heavy and nice it is. It's they really spared no expense with that car. I was definitely expecting some like, oh yeah, and then this part's from an Audi and this part's from whatever. It's like, nope, every single part of that car is like bespoke. It's amazing. I mean, the metal turn signal stock is so good. You never thought you'd like a nice weight on that, but it's something. But anyway, the track experience was wild because the goal of it, obviously a Veyron would smoke a Prius on the track. This was kind of mimicking the old Top Gear thing, where they took an E92 M3 at full chat, and then they just had to follow it. It was a Prius at full chat, and they had to follow it with an M3 to prove in a Top Gear science way that was more efficient. So we basically did the same thing where I was going balls out in the Prius, and all he had to do was keep up with me. My car has a lot of miles, so I agreed. I was like, sure. In my mind, I was like, we'll do one lap. That's what I thought we were doing. And we get there after this drive and stuff like that, and he's like, okay, it's going to be 10 laps. And I'm like, I don't know if old girl's got it in her. Like, I got oil consumption.
That's a lot to ask of a how old is what year is it?
It's an 08. She's got 220,000 miles.
That's a lot to ask of any car with 220,000 miles and is 16 years old. So
and I believe the original battery. And like at this stage, I've got a little bit of oil consumption. That's the death of the second gens. So I was even like, oh boy, okay. Well, I mean, I was like, it's showtime. I mean, when else are you going to get this kind of opportunity? It's like,
right.
If it throws a rod, while it would be very inconvenient and unfortunate for me, how much more entertaining would that have been? But I'm happy to report. First of all, it handled it fine. The only thing I will say is, so if you've ever driven a Prius, which I guess you guys have, the battery is helping you a lot. The engine's really never working that hard. When you floor it, it kind of tacks up, but the battery does most of the stuff. And not even maybe halfway through lap 1, my battery was down to 1 bar. And if you know anything about Priuses, it kind of, once it gets down to 1 or 2 bars, it takes a minute to regen. Even when it's trying its hardest, even when I'm track braking, it just didn't stand a chance. So I was practically on all motor that entire time. Like, I mean, I forgot how much the electric motor actually assists, but when you only have 110 combined horsepower, when you subtract like 35 of it, you notice. And it's like, oh boy. But it was
That's
something.
Weird.
The first turn, it got light in the rear. I mean, it just was like drifting. I mean, I sent you guys the image, which is amazing, and I got to get it framed.
So cool.
That's what I was.
But
yeah, you're definitely you're 3-wheeling there.
Yeah, and then I got one of the last laps. I was drifting and I clipped the rumble strip, and it was awesome.
That's so cool.
And Tyler's watching, and I could just hear him laughing on the radio because he's just one-hand drive. I mean, it is not.
Oh yeah,
it is. Dan is cruising for that car.
You did the Top Gear thing, but you did it in a more extreme way because an E92 M3 is a great sports car. A Bugatti Veyron is on a completely different echelon than an E92 M3. Like, you could be driving that car with your pinky finger, and you could do it at that speed.
Exactly. Like, so he was having a leisurely drive, and I got to tell you, I was sawing at the wheel and fighting for my life because I mean, the brakes aren't. Nothing about the Prius is designed for that. It's got little tiny rock hard tires. Oh, there's the picture. Just epic. Like I said, that's got to be framed. But what was I saying?
100%.
Nothing about it. So, like I said, tires are rock hard and small. The weight distribution, none of this is meant for this. And I was, like I said, working it because the brake feels funny because it's like not really using the brakes until a certain level, and then it bites down, so it's like kind of hard to get that right. It was just an adventure. I can't believe. I almost seriously went off the track a couple of times because it like wasn't slowing down, and I'm like, oh my god, this is. But it was so awesome, and at the end. First of all, I was massively relieved I didn't, throw a rod during the race. But at the end, we compared fuel consumption, and surprisingly, I thought, because especially being on all motor, I was like, the Veyron had to have gotten better because it was basically idling back there. And it turns out I used going balls out for more than 30 minutes straight. Foot to the floor, and I used 1 gallon of gas.
That's crazy.
Yeah, actually. I was like, oh my gosh, that's wild. And the Veyron ended up using something like 2 or something a little over. And I was like, well, I'm surprised. I figured that thing would. I really expected to take the L on that whole thing, but it was just
that is actually very interesting because I know, again, going back to the Top Gear thing, it's like V8 versus W16. Like, again, it's more cylinders, way more fuel, blah blah blah. Like, it's
right.
I did not expect it to be that far apart. Like,
no.
If you're doing it in a sense of like 1 gallon to 2 gallons, like, oh, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that is a huge delta. Like, that's a big margin.
It's crazy
when you do a race like that with that little bit of sample size.
Well, and also, like you said, yes, it's more cylinders, more fuel, and all that stuff. But at no point was he ever in boost.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's like I just like to think the engine really wasn't working that hard. Is it simply using that much more by being on?
That's what I was just gonna say that. Like, I honestly think yes, like that thing idling might do just as much gas mileage as you driving crazy. Like
it was.
I would be curious. I know it won't happen again, but I'd be curious to see if he literally just idled around the track. What the consumption would be versus you going completely insane.
Just knowing the huge delta in the test that we did, I really wouldn't be surprised if it still was worse. But yeah, like I said, because it's not like my engine's fresh. There's probably got blow by. I've probably got all sorts of stuff going on that's making it less efficient. And I don't know. Yeah. I was very surprised as well. But that day was also cool because we had a few other cars out there. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but I got to ride in that Ford GT, the 2020 or whatever year they came out, 19.
Yeah, the newest one.
The newest one, yeah, with the retractable wing and stuff like that. I'd been around those, but I haven't ridden in one, and that was pretty sweet.
The one that from the rear, it looks like an Angry Birds pig.
Yes, it's got the pig. Yeah. Unfortunately, it kept getting colder, and like the ground was seriously like ice. The GT couldn't put the power down at any point. Even in fourth gear, the rear would step out when he got into boost. So it was that's a bummer. Kind of crazy. But I'd say the most fun thing we did was he also brought his Maybach down there for, I don't really know, just another juxtaposition. And the guy, my friend driving it, Tyler Potter, was saying, man, I can't believe how tail happy this thing is. And I remember seeing it in the rear view just like sideways. And I was like, holy shit. And, at the end, Tyler was like, let's all, some of us all ride in it while he's hanging the tail end out. And so it was odd because we had helmets on and stuff like that. But we got to sit in the back of the Maybach as it's drifting around the track. And it's such a long wheelbase. It feels like you're touching both ends of the track. I've never been in that far back, that sideways. And it was just hilarious. I definitely hit the recline just for the story, just to be like, I'm reclined and sideways in a Maybach.
The most comfortable drift of all time.
It really was. It was silent. You couldn't hear you could only hear kind of the tires. It was amazing. It was a very weird experience. But it was just such a fun day. And I'm glad we got to do it. And like I said, what a cool story. I think the video turned out really well. And like I said,
yes,
people love to see Bugattis actually doing stuff other than sitting there, which is, I feel like, what they do in most videos.
Yeah, which is why I really enjoy watching Stradman's videos in that sense, because he actually does stuff with his hypercars. Like, he had the Veyron and has got the Koenigsegg, which he should totally sell. That thing's insane. But people that buy them and actually do them, but also do them and create content with them, that's cool, because it's not only just getting used in the manner of which it was intended to to be used for and built for, but it's also like just cool for that person to own it and use it. And also cool for us to watch and say, oh, great, you know, cars are meant to be driven. Like all enthusiasts are like, yeah, you drive the cars. But until you get hyper rich and then you're just like, do I want to drive that right now? But
right.
It's great to see it actually being not worked on, but like used in that manner. I'm a big fan of that.
Definitely. And I mean, that's what he still gets a lot of flack for selling the Countach, kind of not directly in exchange for it, but, you know, in order to replace it. But in all honesty, even though it was a less valuable car, the Countach got to that point. I watched him. I was there the day he picked it up. And, you know, one of the last days it was around, he went from being like, this is pretty neat to this thing is so valuable, I don't want it to leave the garage kind of a thing. And I mean, not only that, but it was uncomfortable to drive. You know, it had all this stuff. The Veyron, even though it's more expensive, is like a big Grand Tourer. I mean, you can fit in it. It's comfortable. You know, it's like it has cruise control. It's got, you know, it's like it's a much more livable car than a Countach. And I mean, I've kind of said it as a classic car guy myself. I've called it like the Duesenberg of our time. I mean, that was the most significant car up until, you know, forever. But it's like, this is one of those, this changed everything. Now it's possible to have a 1,000 horsepower car that doesn't get hot in traffic.
Right. It was a watershed kind of moment.
It's something that a dual clutch transmission that can handle torque. That those didn't exist when that car came out. It was like the car made too much power. You got to still use a manual or whatever. It's we don't need to go into why the Veyron's important, but it's just a cool car to be around. And like I said, do funny things with, especially a mismatched track day.
Right. So my question to Chad then is, Chad, if you were going to do this challenge or this sort of thing, what two cars would you pick for this? And obviously you can't pick a Prius, not that you would, or a Veyron. What would you, if you're going to watch something that's like this same sort of style?
I'm going to watch it. I mean, it's obviously going to be some form of modified car versus like, I feel like the Prius is like like burgeoning on becoming the Kleenex of hybrids, if you catch my meaning. You know?
It kind of always has been.
You know,
it was it was the first one that people knew. You know,
and honestly, it being like a series with Elliott of like, what cars can I get worse gas mileage or better gas mileage than, or something like that, or whatever. But no, like honestly, like a really cool. I don't know.
You could almost do this like Hoonigan was doing with, you know, it's a way less cool version of, you know, head to head or whatever that series was.
Versus that.
This versus that. That's what it was. Yeah, head to head was.
Trend.
But yeah,
this versus please don't make me race that.
Yeah. Every single person is not told what they're racing every time they show up, and they're like, ah.
But it would be an interesting. It would have been interesting to do something racy and track oriented with like say you, Greg, and one of your cars and the pre-barbecued Mustang.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think that would have been really interesting. I actually would like to see it done in the motorcycle version. I would love to see like a Vespa versus a Hayabusa.
That'd be pretty cool. See,
like, again, what the difference in consumption would be, because the Hayabusa would just be like la la la, piddling along, and the Vespa would just be going all freaking out, just the whole way.
Oh my god, I would love that.
Really curious to see what that would be like.
Straight up Deadpool vibes.
Dude.
Yeah, very Deadpool vibes, yeah.
I mean, it's... Oh, God, stop doing this, computer. There we go. No, I tried to close one thing, and it opened another screen on something else.
Of course.
Like, it's always kind of a cool test, but, like, it would be interesting. Like, I would love to almost do... So one of the things with the Silver Mustang that I was really hoping to get to at some point was to like race different random stuff. Like someone a supporter comes up and brings out like just a bone ass stock Survivor 245 wagon Volvo, and it's like, well, how many seconds do I have to give them off the line, right? Like, you know, like what's the most like ridiculous thing? Like almost in a sense, the way we with our budgets could recreate. Like I don't know if you guys remember the Cletus video where he took Ruby, which is like a 7-second C6 Corvette. You'd actually love the beginning of that build because it turns out someone had swapped out the LS2, I think, in that first version of it, and it was an iron block like 5.3 NA. Like
yeah, but NA doesn't make any sense. The only reason you go to an iron block is to boost it, unless they took all the stuff off. But,
right. Well, but they found it in like a junkyard or whatever.
Oh, the LS probably got stolen or something out of it.
Yeah, or something. Like, it was weird, but that was I think that when they drag and drove that, they were always in like the 7.5 second class, which is a stupendously fast car.
Yeah.
And then they put it up against a top fuel car, and like
you see how much faster
the top fuel car went by it so fast, and the engine was so violent that and Ruby's electrics were the wiring was like done by about like Cletus and them before they really had like the guys who knew what they were doing, so it was like good for what they were doing, but not like almost the mil spec that they get on their cars now.
And it can't handle that kind of NVH.
So it literally, as the second the top fuel car goes by, it shook the living hell out of it and just disconnected something, and the car just shut down.
That's funny.
I always thought it'd be,
dude. Those things are violent.
They are.
They really are.
They're so.
You know, like doing like stuff like that. I mean, the miles per gallon thing would have been fun in the old car just because of, you know, the power it was putting out, and it was modified, and it's like everybody sits here, it's like, well, why do you make your car get such worse gas? Like, honestly, I'd love to do a test of, I would have loved to have done a test of a 2015 GT and my car, the other GT stock, my car, and do like a road trip. And
yeah, you'd be surprised. It's not, mods and stuff don't really kill gas mileage that much. I mean, unless you're in it. But if you drive it like a normal person, it generally gets similar fuel mileage.
Especially if, you know, let me rephrase that. All boost comes in later in the rev range.
Right.
Right.
Oh, Tyler Potter's in the comments. He was the guy in the video with the white Camaro ZL1 1LE. And yeah, nice. The cold weather and slick pavement were not his friend. That was that car was fight because he's on slicks already. And it was, you know, that's, as you guys know, it's all the power in the world. And I felt so bad for him. I was at the starting line recording him when he took off for the 0 to 100 to 0 challenge. And it was just, it couldn't get traction for the entire length of the straightaway. It was insane. And you could hear it trying, and it keep like, you know, doing fuel cut and like trying to get it to back under control. And it was just like, oh, this poor car. But it was
the longest 11 ever.
It really was, but it was just such a day, and a cool idea.
Yeah,
absolutely, and that's cool. Like the one bummer is like you get this, you get stoked for, you know, oh, we're going to the track, we're doing track things, we're doing this. Track, like, did you guys had the track rented, right? Like it wasn't.
We did, and as Tyler just said, it was supposed to be 50 degrees and sunny, which I know is not warm, but warm enough to get traction.
Yeah, well, 50 and sunny means a track temperature of between 65 and 80, depending on
you can get
how
some temperature
much the sun is beating down on it.
This was,
like, you can get traction.
We were running, like, whenever we were doing certain things in the track, you could run and slide like it was ice, like with your shoes. It was nuts.
Wild.
Cat's back.
Yeah, but that was a really cool video. It was fun to watch, and it was cool seeing again the Prius versus the Veyron. Like, that was cool, but. The other one, let's talk about the other one that you published today.
Today's video.
Which is going to be more interesting, I feel, to get Chad's going to have more of the opinions on it, because Mustang Mach E, not a real Mustang, but a real car, because people buy them. So, impressions before Chad says anything. What are your impressions on the car first and foremost?
I generally liked it. I mean, here's the deal. Most modern cars, like anything within the last like 2 years, is so, nice and livable and everything else. I mean, you could throw a dart and practically even a Kia, 2023 is going to be pretty nice. I mean,
it's just good as a car.
Right. But the Mustang was good. I've been driving quite a few electric cars lately. The interior was okay. I mean, it has like cloth seats. It had some cool stuff going on for it. I wasn't in love with the infotainment system, but it got the job done. The most importantly, though, because my direct comparison is the Cadillac Lyriq, a more expensive car, undoubtedly, but that's something I drive almost every day. And, you could call them comparable. Cadillac Lyriq is 500 horsepower. The Mustang Mach E GT is like 480. So I was surprised. I was like, this will be similarly as fast as the Lyriq. Similar specs all around. Dual motors, similar range. Cadillac has more horsepower. I couldn't believe it the first time I'd stepped on it in the Mustang of how much faster it is. And I go over this in the video that I was like, I mean, I didn't think about looking it up before I drove it. I was like, why does this feel so much faster? And the main thing is it weighs 1,000 less pounds than the Lyriq.
That's crazy, actually.
Again, I make the point in the video, but when Porsche, Ferrari, Corvette even, when they make a lightweight version of a car, it's 20, 25, 30 pounds lighter. And it gets like another few horsepower. Like the bump in power is very negligible, and the subtraction of weight really isn't insane. But I was blown away by how much faster minus 20 horsepower and minus 1,000 pounds felt. So in that aspect, absolutely addicting to drive. The other thing that the Mustang allows you to do that the Cadillac doesn't, and I kind of get this, and I think they'll fix this with the Lyriq V, is they know their customer base. People who buy a Mustang Mach E GT, like Mustang people, they seem kind of like, let's go fast, they know that. And so they give you all the power down low, like a Tesla or whatever. The Cadillac, no matter what mode it's in, if you jump on it from the dead start, it slowly feeds in the power and then gives it all to you once you're going a little bit. So it doesn't give you that, like, take your breath away electric car feel from a dead stop.
It's like a more luxurious, wafty sort of acceleration in a sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's odd. It's only if you're from a stop. If you're going 30 and you go to pass somebody, gives it all to you, and it's, chest compression torque. It's awesome. But from a stop, it will not let you do a spirited takeoff. Now, the Mustang would and almost encouraged you to, even obviously with traction control and all that stuff on, and it was hot. Every time you could hear all the tires scrambling. Every time you punched it, it would like burn all four out. Especially like if you got on it from, just finishing a turn or anything. It was an insane thing. And I'm glad they made it that way. That was the, okay, this is the performance version of this car. It's letting you, have it. So that aspect I liked a lot. And I know, like I said, they're apples and oranges, because Cadillac knows this is going to be somebody's probably first electric car, and they're really looking for luxury. So they focused on sound deadening and comfort and ride quality and stuff like that. The Mustang, they wanted it to be fun. I saw Chat's comment now.
I was just
you're gonna have your moment.
The way you're speaking about this car is definitely fueling the rage.
I know, and that's the thing. And we do need to get into that. And I do want to talk about it because I'm not in total disagreement with you that it shouldn't be called the Mustang, but I do see why they did it. My only other peeve, especially again comparison, even Tyler Potter just said in the comments because he just got an Equinox EV. Same kind of deal, Ultium platform. I don't know. GM's just not letting them accelerate off the line. I don't know what the deal is. And like I said, they're coming out with the Lyriq V, and that I would hope has a mode that is somewhat of a launch, or at least gives it all to you off the power. Because you should know what you're getting into if you get a V, anything. But the only other thing that is not going to, hopefully won't boil Chad's blood as much, is the only thing I didn't like is this had Ford's Blue Cruise, which is their version of Super Cruise. And I just didn't find it to be nearly as good as GM's Super Cruise. First of all, I'm in a different city, so I'm kind of looking around, like not on my phone or anything like that. All these systems have face trackers. and they are like, look out the windows is basically what it's wanting you to do. But this thing would get pissy with me if I like looked out the driver's window for about that long and turned back. It would be like beeping and freaking out. I was like, give me a second. I mean, I'm not looking down. I'm looking out.
Yeah. Checking a rear view, it sounds like it would be an issue.
It was a little too intrusive on that aspect. And the only other thing, which again, this is such a future problem that we have, but once you get used to it, it's nice, is Super Cruise will detect what's going on in front of you and change lanes for you. And even if you detect something like that, you move the stock, it'll change lanes. Teslas will do that. This one did not care. If you wanted to change lanes at all, stock, nothing, didn't care. You had to cancel Blue Cruise, switch lanes, reactivate Blue Cruise. I'm like, that ruins the point of that. Now I'm seeing in the comments now that they did update that for like either the newer models or there's a software update, and now it will change lanes on its own, and I think that would make a difference. But that was my only other thing. It does have a frunk, unlike the Lyriq. I mean, for what that's worth for people who love it. And then, the storage space, a little less, but it's a slightly smaller car. Overall, fun, perfect as a rental. I think used, they're an amazing value. It's a little tough to justify. I think they're like 67 grand because there's not really a lot of options on them.
That's what a lot of people I think are coming to find about EVs is, as a used car, EVs in that range are just tremendous value. Like Anthony and Chad, he just got a XC40 Recharge, and like that was another one where it came out. It was like, for Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong on the pricing here, but it was like, I want to say between 45 and 60 at some point, or 50 and 60. And as a entry level luxury brand that Volvo is, that's still a lot for a very small crossover. Like GTI inside,
very small
size crossover. But you can find them on the used market for between 20 and 35, depending on mileage, all day long. And like, that's a good deal.
At that point it is. And the thing that we're going to see, and this is a whole different subject, unfortunately, you just gotta, once you gotta buy it, it's never going back up. There's nothing but down for electric cars.
Right.
So it's buying it at the right point that you can live with, knowing that it will have zero value by the time you're done with it. So
right.
That being said,
use this as an appliance.
Right. I mean, this more so than it ever has been. Treat it like a cell phone. You're going to use it until you never use it again. That's just the way it is. But no, see, like I said, the Mustang at a 35 grand price point, pretty attractive, especially with all of the features and everything. I was like, okay, and then in that kind of performance, I mean, unbelievable. But like I said, you'd kind of be. I think it's just too much. If it was brand new, 47, you couldn't sell them fast enough. But 67, I don't know. There's different stuff out there that I'm taking my 67 grand with. So that being said, Chad, he's cartoonishly red right now. Because you are a Mustang guy, and I have just been calling your guys' I don't know if you want to call it a redheaded stepchild, but it's definitely the bane of true Mustang enthusiasts' existence, is the fact that they went and called it a Mustang and put a dang horse on the front.
I mean, just to get to your review, the whole fucking... Oh, there goes monetization. Bye.
That's how mad this has gotten.
At this point, we're over 20 minutes in. It doesn't matter anymore.
The thing about that video that stood out was, one, the dumbass door handles. Two, unbridled. Are you kidding me?
They went with the horse theme, I'm sure. I mean,
the Mustang wasn't a horse theme. The Mustang was a fighter plane theme.
It has a horse on the front. It's its symbol.
Right, but...
in a corral.
But if you notice, in a Mustang, the speedometer, going back, I think as far as they've made them, there's literally, on the Speedo, it says ground speed. As an homage to the P50,
super cool.
To the P51. It's really, really simple. Mustang created the pony car. And pony car, by its definition, is a sporty car. They're basically a heavy sports car, but it's a 2+2, so 2 doors with 2 back seats that seat things.
A child, maybe.
You know, adults definitely not comfortable at all. But I've had a small adult back there, and it wasn't pleasant for them. But the whole point of it is that we have this current thing going on in the automotive industry where, I mean, Ford, well, they're a bright beacon example of it. Of cars are dying, which means fun cars are dying. What's the only fun car that Ford makes?
Unfortunately, now that the Focus RS and ST are gone, it's the Mustang.
Right? They had the Fiesta ST, they had the Focus ST, they had the, they had those cars. And so those cars died because crossovers. And then they're like, all right, our brand is still standing on one thing, and that is the Mustang. We will keep it, and as long as they're going to have to make a V8 illegal for us to stop putting it into this car, right? And then they go ahead and then they go ahead and take the V8 out. They take all explosive, Mesozoic life out of it, which, okay, fine, EVs, whatever. They're good for what they are.
I know they're fast, but they ain't got no soul. I get you.
And then, here's the thing. If they made an all-wheel drive, all-electric, long hood, short deck, 2-door, 2+2, electric Mustang, I wouldn't have a problem with it because it's the time we live in. As long as the V8 versions remained.
And that's your problem with the Charger, correct?
Right. Well, my problem with the Charger is that they insist on calling it a muscle car.
Right.
The whole point is that names and this sort of stuff have meaning. I'm sure, to put it into sort of your wheelhouse or what have you, if you'd have feelings about a Corvette crossover.
Yeah.
Regardless of powertrain.
I would feel also equally as don't do that,
and that's the thing and the other thing that really annoys the crap out of me about this entire situation is that I forget which exec came out and said it, but they're talking about making Mustang a brand, right? Similar to and having a sedan variant of the Mustang. Okay, we lived through the Charger becoming a sedan. Nobody,
we lived.
It's all right, and especially once they started shoving bigger and bigger engines into it, people are like, I can dig this.
Yeah.
And he goes, there absolutely won't be a Mustang SUV. It's because you already make one, jackass. And it's brand engineering as opposed to creative thought is the last. Number one, it's not the redheaded stepchild of the quote unquote Mustang lineup. No, it's not a Mustang. It's a it is a bigger black mark, trouser stain, whatever negative connotation you want to apply to it, than the Mustang 2 was.
Oh,
because at least for
statement,
all of the faults that the Mustang 2 had, it at least tried in the times to stick with the ethos, to stick with what it was, to stick with what Mustang was from the very start. And I will be the first to admit that Mustang, when it first came out, it looked awesome. It was that long hood, short deck. It was 2+2. It was a sporty looking car that the everyman could go out and enjoy. And it was pretty soft and falcony and not really sporty until Shelby got involved. He famously said about the original Mustang, you can't turn a mule into a racehorse, but over time it became a sports car in a sense that it's a little heavier than what I would consider to be your traditional sports car, hence the term pony car, to the point where, Camaro was a few years down the road, eventually Mopar with the Challengers, although Mopar kind of went a different route in the modern age with that. The modern Challenger is more akin to the old school Charger than it is to the old school Challenger, if that makes any sense.
Yes, do the yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
Fake noises. So it's just like I said. Apart from all of that, what irritates me the second most, and it's pretty close, especially in what I do now, is that it's freaking lazy badge engineering. Regardless of what it is underneath and what they're doing, and the fact that Hertz decided, let's slap a Shelby badge on it. Whoever came up with that idea should be forced to serve hard labor time in freaking Siberia. They need to just never be allowed back in this country ever again.
Oh my god!
But it's lazy. They could have come up with so many different things, because guess what? I don't think in any way, shape, or form that having the Mustang name attached to the Mach E affects its sales in the slightest. I mean, we might be talking about a less than 3% at all. I've had maybe, and I'm pretty sure the person just does it to troll actual Mustang drivers. Mach E kind of give, the Jeep has the wave. Certain motorcycles have hand signals that aren't related to motorcycle gangs. And he gave me the sort of, hey, we drive the same car wave, and I'm just, we are not the same.
You gave him the finger in return?
No, I mean, I'm not a complete jackass or a complete rageaholic on the roads, but it's just, there's so many things into it that thing could have existed, could have been just fine as a sales thing, could have been just fine as long as they didn't attach the Mustang name to it. I wouldn't have had I know Mach 1 has a special place, and there's a lot of really cool Mach 1s, right? But this whole E nomenclature, which as a Corvette enthusiast, you know all too well with the E-Ray,
Yep.
As long as you don't touch Boss, as long as you don't touch Shelby, as long as you don't touch, those nameplates, I'm willing to sacrifice the Mach nameplate. Some people aren't, some people are, what have you. They could have just left it at that, put no horse on it, and just said that. And I would have had no problem with it. Okay, another electric crossover. Let me continue not paying attention to it and moving on with my life.
Right.
But it's just, there's nothing about it. And there's fakery to it, too, that pisses me off. The rear roof line, and I'm sure you noticed this because you had a black on white. The rear roof line is faked in a sense that, yes, it does have some rake. It does have some styling to it. It does affect, rear storage or what have you to it. But there's a good, 4 or 5 inches of black paint made to look
like a sloped line. Yes.
More like the fakery. And fakery in any car irritates me. It's the noise through the speakers. It's the fake engine noise in an electric car. It's like tick, 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 tick. Okay, hate this car. Moving on.
I agree. If I may for a second, I think you're 100% right. I think we're also looking at this with a few years of hindsight that we're afforded now. I think it would have been fine calling it either just the Mach E or something else. It turns out, we know that now, that it didn't move anything. But I think the marketing team or whoever ultimately made that decision was so convinced that it would get asses in the dealership calling it a Mustang. I think they just ultimately went with that. I think it is nothing more than, we can sell this and people will talk about it if we call it that. Yes. You get name recognition, which is what they're after, which is, like I said, it's why the Charger is the Charger, even though it's electric now. It's people recognize it.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Right. I remember the outrage. The second it was announced, everyone's like, no, it's not. It's both. And it's, like I said, it was a double whammy. It's both electric and not even a car. So I get that. I get the rage, and I would definitely feel just as wound up about it if it happened to Corvette first, or if it ever happens to them. I would also be like, man, come on.
It's like Corvette's bringing back the front engine. It's like, yes, this is going to be, it's back to pure Corv. What is it? Oh, it's an Equinox with a funny nose.
Yeah, I know. It's like, boy. But so the other thing though is we do have to think about stuff like, first of all, Ford went through a little bit of a time period. I'm talking years of so overhandedly trying to shove V8s aren't cool anymore down the public's throat that they made a choice to make their Halo car not V8 as like a statement.
Yes.
They took it away now I know you could make the argument at least it's still internal combustion, and you're right. But remember, there was this huge time period where Ford is like, we're phasing it out. I mean, it's really hard to find an F-150 with a V8 in it anymore. All of the stuff, everything's EcoBoost, even our Halo car. It was just a matter of time before they're like trying to also then make everything electric and whatever. I mean, they've since walked this back. I mean, I thought it was a big mistake to take the V8 out of the Raptor because you get this big burly looking, off-road machine, and then it makes a pathetic sound when it starts up. You're like, oh, come on. But then, of course, they rectified it with the Raptor R. Now, of course, that's if you're willing to spend six figures for a truck.
Right. But well, that's exactly the thing. Is they new coked us with it.
Right.
And I think the same thing's going to happen with Mopar too.
But like I said, this is what we need to think about. As you said in the beginning of your thing, cars are going away. Other than, thank God, so far, other than performance cars or fun cars, they're not making them anymore. So people are still dailying, these SUVs and these crossovers. I mean, we've seen it in gas crossovers for a little bit now. They've made performance versions of crossovers, which people were, in arms about. Like, that's not what this is for. There's countless examples. I mean, you can get a BMW X3M, Porsche Taycan, a Macan Turbo.
There's a performance aftermarket for the Explorer ST.
Yeah. But like I said, they make performance SUVs now, which is something we really didn't. I mean, yes, you can call like the LM002 and very weird one-offs, stuff like that. But I mean, manufacturers right now are kind of going, hey, people are pretty much using these SUVs as everything. We should make a performance version of it. And I mean, Ford's not the only one. Look, think about it. Cadillac's making the Lyric V, a car that, by all intents and purposes, doesn't need to exist. What is it? Is it luxury or is it performance? It's the same argument. I wish they would have not named it the Mustang. I wish it would have been its own thing, but they did achieve A, lots of media buzz, and B, people do kind of recognize it as like, that's the new Mustang, even though obviously it's not the new Mustang. It's a thing wearing the Mustang badge. They did accomplish some of their goal. And of course, like I said, what do you do when you make a performance version of that thing? You carry over the performance nameplate from the brand you stole it from. So you make it a GT in the same font and everything. People recognize
it is neither grand nor is it a tourer.
That's true. But like I said, people recognize, hey, I know that font, that means fast. Or, means this one's the faster one. Obviously, it used to mean this one has the V8. But in this one, it's like, okay, well, this one has two motors. Cadillac, given, again, this is not the same exact argument, but it's just they're similar enough that it's fine. The only way to tell a single motor from a dual motor Lyric is their silly little number that they put on the back that turns out it means Newton meters of torque. So it's like you either get the 450E or the 600E or whatever. They don't really call it a performance version as much. I'm sure the V will have a little V badge. But
they use metric.
They use metric. It's on every Cadillac. If you look, next time you're behind a newer Cadillac, every Escalade, CT5 and stuff like that, they all have a little number in the lower right, and it means Newton meters of torque that it puts out. Because at first I was like, 600, this has 500 horsepower, but I was like, the Escalade says 600 on the back of it too, and then I started to look into it, and it's that, and it's kind of funny.
Luckily, Newton meters have never been to the moon. Got it.
That is true. But
I had to take care of a family thing, but I've returned, and I missed the entire Mustang conversation. I'm sure
you did. You can imagine. Do you have any thoughts on it yourself? Basically, should it or shouldn't it be, and what are your thoughts now that it's been out for a few years?
To me, it 100% shouldn't be a Mustang. Honestly, it should have just been a Mach. If they called it the Mach E with no Mustang name, I would have been perfectly fine with that. Again, to your point, I get why they did it. They wanted to build off the Mustang brand and the Mustang name, and they along with lots of other companies had and were trying to build these like sub brands, right? Because like look at the Prius, They had the Prius Prime, the Prius V, the Prius C, and then magically a lot of them went away.
And now
they've been right. So I think Ford tried to do a very similar thing here, where they're like, oh, we're launching this electric car.
We want people to know it.
We want people to know it. We don't have any other cars except for the Mustang. Let's make it part of the Mustang line. And like that the marketing aspect makes sense. I get that. However,
no, it doesn't.
From a it does. From a marketing aspect, it does. But here's the thing, though.
That's who won. The marketing team was like, that's what we're doing.
Marketing doesn't sell cars, and that's a common misconception in the automotive realm. Marketing doesn't sell cars unless it's at the dealer level, because product sells the cars. Marketing's just there to let the public know that the car is there. Whereas marketing is much stronger in other areas, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, food and beverage. Like there's a lot more marketing there, whereas most cars, like, people know what cars are and the cars do. There's not a lot of like new stuff, but marketing is more there of just a informational tool as opposed to like, come buy this new thing. It's just like, well, the car really hasn't changed all that much since its inception. 4 wheels, an engine, it goes at its base. That's like
right.
That's what it does, right? So, in a sense, it makes sense from a marketing standpoint, because they tried to sell the car. And
to piggyback off your point.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I would say the point is, we also have to remember, and I mean, you guys kind of included, people are pretty reluctant to buy electric cars. And that's
correct.
Pretty important to be like, if we're going to come out with one that is dedicated electric, we need to have it be instantly recognizable, and Mustang that's a household name. Now, like
exactly.
I said, whether we agree if it should have been done that, from a marketing perspective, how do you get people to be familiar with something that they already have an aversion to?
Yes.
You bring some familiarity.
Yeah, so doing that, it made sense.
Hey, here's your familiarity to this electric car, this gas-guzzling muscle car that has never been about. Well, I guess the Mustang 2 was.
I know. I didn't say it was a good move, but I mean,
but in the last 50 years, it hasn't been anything about any of this shit. Like, no, like. Here's the thing: when the Mach E came out, EVs were the rage. EVs were the next wave. If you didn't have some variation of an electric crossover in the pipeline, or coming soon, or in production, getting ready to go, you were going to be in trouble. So they could have called it anything, and it would have gotten buzz because it was a new electric crossover. And all they had to say was, we're targeting the Model Y. They don't have to say,
sure,
or what have you. And the people who actually care about it, i.e. electric carists, would have been like, cool. I don't care what it's called. It's not called the steamy wet turd. I'm in. But no, they're like, hey, let's call it something that it has absolutely nothing in common with. And just to be like, it's a Mustang. No, fuck you.
It has 3 things in common. It has wheels, a steering wheel, and seats.
That's true. Okay, but Greg, to your point, I think it does matter, because they wanted to get people who, okay, electric car people are already sold. Like me, I'm like, they're cool. Get one. Don't pay it, make it your only car, but whatever. There's a lot of people, I mean, even people I work with every day, that are just like, oh, I would never. And I mean, they've never experienced one. They've never even been close to one. And they have this, oh, I would never. But calling it a Mustang might have made one of them, or two of them, curious. Now, I say it's important to have brand recognition, because you can also release an all-electric car that could have the worst name ever possible, like the Subaru BZ4X. I mean, that doesn't even it doesn't even follow like a Mercedes thing where it's like C300. It has letters and numbers mixed in the middle of it. It's a horrible name. And I mean, every time I see one, I'm like, hey, look, there's the BZ4X39. Whatever it is, it's a bad
720
name.
McTwist, whatever it is.
Now, I know, like you said, they could have called it anything else, but I think it was a purely marketing decision. It was going to get people curious. It was going to get people talking. It was recognizable, but so was somebody kind of made the point. I mean, they do call the littlest pickup truck they make, they call it the Maverick. The Maverick was never a truck, but they, hey, I remember that.
And
but the Maverick is different. Ford isn't synonymous with the Maverick.
They aren't. I mean, a lot of people don't remember it. People under a certain age have no idea it exists, which is why they were able to make it a truck.
The only reason people really understand that the Maverick existed is if they are not of that age, is because Top Gear USA did something with the Maverick. But they're these brands, and these brands hold meaning, and it's like they go, oh, a Mustang electric car. Well, electric cars are kind of cool. I'm kind of digging that. Let me just see what it. I was not expecting that. And it's like, look, I get what you guys are saying, and I understand that it was the low-hanging fruit. It's like, okay, what's the car we're currently making that we can sort of brand, right? Like we talked about before, create its own sort of brand that will immediately get people to look at it, regardless of if they like electric cars or not. Be like, new Mustang. So, and eyeballs are eyeballs, and if people are talking about you, you're generating buzz, and that's the thing. I just think it was lazy. I think you could have absolutely launched this in a completely different way, and it would have sold the same.
I agree, and especially because we have hindsight to look at, knowing that now. Especially
even in the time, again, because when was the first Mach E came out in what, like
2020 or one, yeah.
I don't know. Right smack in when electric car sales were on the up.
Right.
I mean, obviously COVID had something to say about car sales in general, but I think in 22 they hit a peak of like 26 or something like that market share. Greg knows the numbers better than I do. But so it was launched right at the perfect time. It's like Ford's got an EV. Okay, and it was taking sort of the Tesla mantra of not beating you over the head that it's an EV in the way it was styled. I personally don't mind the styling. I was actually, when there were rumors that the S650 was going to kind of share some of the design language, especially from the front end, I was like, this is cool. This could almost be like there were a lot of I forget the exact model Aston Martin, but there were a lot of like the Zagato vibes with those rolling fenders and stuff like that. I don't know. I think for what it is, I think it's a pretty decent looking car. So it had looks, it had performance, it had that it wasn't just another box, right?
Right.
And it was launched in a time when, in the exact moment of that time, EV sales were going up, and nobody really knew when they would stop. So it was like, let's get on this train and see where it takes us.
You can't go wrong. Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the point I'm making, is that because I think up until that point, I think Ford had the Fusion Energy, which was their plug-in hybrid.
And that did well for them. I used to see those all over the place. I mean, it's considered better than the C-Max, which was like their Prius competitor. And that thing is...
Oh, God.
I mean, that was an insult, although I've driven a couple of them. And if you have the window down, the turbo whistle is insane. You're like, dang, it sounds like a freaking, like, Cummins when you're like... But anyway, that's beside the point. One thing I think, and this is important because we are in the hindsight is 2020 portion of this. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think it needed to be called a Mustang. I understand also wholeheartedly why they made that decision. But, looking back how I would have handled it, and Ford, feel free to take this from me for next time. They could have done advertisements, like I said, calling it the Mach E and showing like a Mustang morphing into that, but never actually attaching the name to it. Like really leaning on performance inspired by our legendary Mustang. If you like the Mustang, you'll love this. Rather than just going same. Like I get that, and I definitely agree with you there. And like I said, hindsight is 2020. We would have known, and I think it still would do great as a Mach E. You can come up with new names and sell cars. I mean, look, given Cadillac's going a little nuts with it right now, but the Lyric wasn't a callback, and now they've got like the Celestique and the whatever, the Optique. Now they're going nuts with putting Q's in the name. It's just one of those things. You can come up with new names, but at the time it was a wild west of trying to get your EVs into the hands of the people, of reluctant people. And I think they just ultimately made that decision. like I said, don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I do see why that boardroom meeting took place, and they told everybody, tough shit, this is going to be a Mustang.
I guarantee you it happened on a Friday of a holiday weekend. Guaranteed.
Probably.
It's like, all right, guys, we need to come up with a name. This name needs to grab people and get them excited about our new EV project. What do we call it? Mustang?
Mustang. And they were like, no
Jenkins, great idea. So, Bar, let's go.
I'll say one last thing. I think we can wrap sort of this topic was I'm on Chad's side in the sense that, and not that I'm not on your side, Elliott, but like
you're on my side.
I'm on Chad's side in the sense that you didn't need to call it a Mustang to sell it because new hot EVs, EV market is hot. Let's bring one out. It's gonna sell anyway. I also think that like no one in that market really gives a shit about the Mustang at all. Quite frankly,
I agree.
Like I don't think that putting a Mustang name on it helped those buyers actually make a decision to buy the car, because
I definitely agree.
If you're cross-shopping a Mustang and a crossover, you're
confused. Yeah, you're confused on what to want.
Yes, you are a very confused individual in the automotive realm, and
you're just waiting for
probably should not be driving.
You're just waiting for the confirmation on that old piss test. If you're cross-shopping those,
right? That definitely.
Yeah.
I think the only, and this is again extremely rare cases, but we all know people who lean towards one thing in their collections. There's guys with multi-car collections, and they're all Mustangs. And this guy, I think, would buy a Mach E for his wife, who's always wanted one of her own. And that way he's staying in the family. But how rare
that's like 1,000 people.
That's what I'm saying. There's not that many of those people. And those people,
but that's
I also bet
that's like
are
getting
just as outraged.
That's like getting the 1993 Scott Brocious rookie card just to complete the set.
Right. But you also have to remember there's stuff that
collectors are a different breed. I will acknowledge
they chose a different brand name, or not brand name, model name. But if you guys remember, in whenever it was, the early 2000s when the Porsche Cayenne came out, those guys shit their britches. I mean, it was this badge belongs nowhere near anything that comes up past my waist. I mean, it was outrage, and guess what? It saved the brand pretty much.
Yeah.
And now we know the Cayenne is a fantastic vehicle, but the outrage, and I mean the articles were, what is Porsche doing? What are these guys doing? Now, given that was an example that A, they chose a new name, and B, it worked out. That's when SUVs were all the rage. We're living through a time when both crossovers and EVs are all the rage. And if they had just come up with a new name, and also remember this, if they had been first to market, if they could have beaten a lot of people to market, I think we would see these around a lot more. But there were too many options by the time it came out, I think.
Yeah. A lot of people, that's an interesting point, because a lot of people say that the Boxster really was the thing that saved Porsche.
It definitely helped too.
Quite frankly, if they were to not come out with the Cayenne, in 10 years, Porsche would have been in the exact same position. The Cayenne is the thing that actually saved Porsche from going completely under.
And look at what they're doing now. The Macan. Once everybody was into crossovers, they came out with one, and they can't keep them on the lot.
My dad has one. He bought one. He's like, I'm going to go buy a Porsche. I'm just like, sure you are, buddy. That's just a really nice VW at this point.
My mom has had two, and I mean, she still has one. But I'm just saying, they are fantastic.
They've always been really nice VWs.
I know, but they're...
That was for my...
Right,
shut up, Chad.
That was my about ready to go hit the slopes colleague here.
No, it was, like I said, that, again, Porsche did it right in both cases. This, I think, coming up with a different name, if they had called it the Boxster L, it would not have done very well.
I would have loved that, because I wasn't a fan of the Boxster, and I thought that car was a gigantic L.
Well, don't you remember the Fiat and the Fiat 500L? I mean, that thing is a tumor on wheels. I mean, they're horrible, and they were just just slap an L on it for bigger, obviously large or whatever Italian for.
I think in the Fiat's case, they're applying European, the European buyer to a car that it's look, it's the big version. We have made it big. It's
right.
Yeah. And it fits inside of Suburban.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's their big one. It's hilarious, but it's also funny because they're looking at they sell 500s like crazy over there, and not so much over here. They lost their cuteness factor.
What do you guys think is the worst letter attached to a car? To me, it's the L, because it's just like the Fiat 500 loser. Like that's what I think of when I hear like. And I know that there's like the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. I know the L stands for long wheelbase. Like, as a writer, I can't be like the Fiat 500L. It's like, well, that's just the loss. It's a loser car. Like, and not that the people buy them are losers. It's just like, to me, that's just like the letter that you shouldn't associate with it.
It is a hilarious letter, because we all know R, S, and T are great letters to attach to your car, which is why like I thought it was funny at the time when Lexus was like, I don't know, F. Like it's like not like it's kind of a weird letter, but
fuck it.
It ended up being okay.
I don't know. Now, I honestly think they should have come out with like a introducing from Lexus the brand new ISF Ultimate.
Yeah, no, the ISFU.
Like, come on, that would have been. People would have loved that.
There wouldn't be a Polestar sitting behind me. There would be a Lexus.
Polestar's nice, and like I said, I mean, M is
that's
fine,
a great
but
name because it's strippers. But continue.
That's true.
Also, yes.
M is also not a very extreme letter, but it's been around before the other ones, and they figured out how well that worked. AMG is 3 letters, and that works too.
Sure.
You could argue that Hyundai's N line isn't exactly a great name. They're cool.
Well, it's because the guy they pilfered Porsche's M guy, and he's he's been working with the Germans, and he's like, so what will we call it? Well, if it was M when I worked there, N.
N is one better.
That's the next generation. It makes total sense.
Let's get a shit.
I mean, but it's silly. You get in a Hyundai Elantra N, and the freaking seat lights up with an N, and like, it's I don't know something about it, you're like, it's not as cool of a letter.
Like when Kobe changed his jersey number to 24. It's like, oh, I'm one better than Jordan. It's just like, bro, we all know that that's not true. Get out of here.
Right. So I mean, unfortunately, I think what we're getting at is all the cool letters are taken.
Like you said with like the Cadillac, they have a Q moniker going on. They're like, everything ends in a Q.
They're sticking with it.
Cool.
You know, they're sticking with it. And it's better than when I forgot what company decided to start their naming convention all confusing. I mean, I remember when it was like, you could go up to a Mercedes and Volvo too, but like you could read a Mercedes rear and be like, I know exactly what trim level that is. Nowadays, you're like, this is the half AMG version. It's not the 63, it's the 53.
Yes, but like, that's obviously all the same level marketing that we were talking about before, and the fact that like to where someone said it in chat where S stood for like the poverty brand because Nissan. Sean said it or what have you, right? Like you don't want to associate that in any trim of the Mercedes, even if the number is small. You still want to give off that Mercedes post-war vibe, but I will say this: the two most when you ask about letters in cars, one of the most hilarious ones to me is the new Lexus TX because it stands for Texas.
Texas, yeah,
and
there's nothing Texas about that thing.
It has nothing to do with Texas or anything like that.
It has to do with a very specific person that does very specific videos.
Lexus Texas is a porn star. So I'm going to go get in. Hey, how'd you like being inside a Lexus Texas?
It was great. I especially liked the seats in the back.
Yeah.
Plenty of room. Could have fit like 3 or 4 guys in there.
Oh my god. To back up what Greg was saying though, I think putting L on anything that's not a long wheelbase or an extreme luxury car is definitely a loser connotation. Now, BMW did it pretty well with IL and LI. Of course, the I doesn't mean much, but that you're getting the extended wheelbase version, and same thing, you get a long wheelbase Phantom. But these are luxury cars. You're not associating them with performance whatsoever. Although I think you can get an M7 series, not an M7, but an M line 7 series, which totally defeats the purpose. But I've always thought the S AMGs defeated the purpose too. But I'm glad they exist.
Yeah, it's all this badge engineering. It's just obnoxious at this point. Like
the amount of money
I feel like what started this was like the BMW X4 and X6 because they were just filling gaps where they didn't need to be filled.
The X1 and X2 don't need to exist.
Or the 4, or when they started doing 4 and 6 series, like.
Oh, the Grand Coupes?
The 4-door versions of 2-door cars?
Yeah. It's like, okay, hear me out about this new 6 Series we're coming out with. So the 6 Series, it's a 2-door version of the 4-door 5 Series. So hear me out. Here's what we do. We make it a 4-door.
It's so stupid.
I know. It's a 4-door version of a 2. Yeah, it's that was an insane thing. It's still insane.
And I hate that. And one of the things, this is small, and I don't know if this I will freely admit is teetering on this side of mildly, irrational. But I hate the whole even odd thing that they went to because it ruined the M3 in my opinion, right? Like the M3 was a 2 or a 4-door. Now like the M4 sounds like a highway in Europe.
Or a gun.
Yeah. Well,
Also that.
See what you do is you take the M4 to the A1.
I took my M4 to school the other day, and it's like, what?
Like, oh, what? And we're on a watch list.
Whoa! Yeah. No, it's my car, guys. Chill.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the M4 has no.
What kind of Corvette do you have? I was like C4, and they're like, no, what kind? And I'm like, it's the C4.
It's not.
It's a 92.
It's not the loud silly putty.
Yeah, it's not plastic explosive. It's just a 90s Corvette. It's not
C4 yourself. Their car explodes in the distance.
But like the M4 name, they're leaning so heavily into M that they're like, oh, it has an M badge on it. But they've devalued that over the years by selling M Sports and
yes,
like this.
They definitely
where now an M4 just doesn't have. You watch. No. We have the 24 Hours of Daytona coming up. There's going to be M4 GT3 cars racing in it. They're not the best looking things, but they are the best looking M4s out there. But like you see M4 and it just doesn't hit the same way as M3 did.
Agree.
Yeah.
And I also didn't like. I mean, just the fact that they were like, like we've already talked about that. Well, now the higher number means it has less doors. You're like, no, the M3 should always be the 2-door version, and the M4 should be the 4-door version. If you were gonna isolate them like that, I always thought that was a no-brainer. Like when we release a 4-door only version of this, we should call it the M.
Or what was it, the E90 series? It was like
so the
E92. So the E92 is. I don't even to this day I get it messed up. The only one I know is the E91 is the convertible, right?
Yes. The E90 is the 4-door. The E91 is the convertible. The E92 is the 2-door. The E93 is the wagon. But there is no wagon, but because it's still in the E9X range, the wagon is the E93. Even though there's no M version, but the regular version is the E93. And I'm just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Stop it.
It was pretty dumb.
It's so dumb.
Well, and then they went completely. I was like, next generation. I was like F10, and you're like, what? It doesn't follow the. I know it's the M5,
but it's like 5. But F80 is like, what?
Yeah. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So it's one letter more, but 10 less. I'm confused.
It's great.
The chassis codes are just dumb at this point.
Well, and I'm no Mercedes guy. I mean, I know the SLs are R some things, and everything else is some version of W. And I'm like, I only have enough to remember the BMW ones that are important because for some reason those made more sense to me. And and I was so lucky that the only one of the Mercedes that I've really ever had for an extended was a W123. I'm like, I can remember that. I got that. I got that one. But some of the other ones are like, that's a W240, and you're like, why? That doesn't go in order of anything.
Right, but they're so close to each other. That's a W125. That's a W126. Oh, so they're similar cars? No, one's a tank, and one is, or like one's a Formula One car, and the other is like their compact car.
One's a bicycle, the other's a tank.
No, it's like, but like, there's none that make like a crap ton of sense, right? I'll free admit, Mustang. We went with the first generation Mustang. Then we had the Mustang 2. Then we went to the Fox platform Mustangs. Then that morphed into the SN95 Mustangs, which was still a Fox platform, which then morphed again into New Edge, which morphed again into S197, which somehow morphed into S550 and then S650. And the numbers...
Oh, I actually will say point for Corvette on this one. Very straightforward. C stands for Corvette, and the number is just the generation. Very straightforward. Now, you have to know what generation's what, but I mean, it's pretty easy to go, this must be the fifth one because of the number. It's not too many numbers. Like, so I will say, and as much as you hate to give it to the Corvette,
the same thing.
You're like, okay, this makes sense. I can track C1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. But I say that, and they're going to really get me. They're going to call the C9 the CS10 or something like that.
Sure.
Like, what? What does that mean?
Yeah, we've officially jinxed it at this point. Like, they're definitely going to call it something insane.
Good point. I know this is back on subject, though, Chad. What is the body code for the Mustang Mach E? Because I know it's not an SN195 or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Does it have a Mustang
Are you quizzing me, or are you asking if I know?
I'm look it up. I'm genuinely curious. I never even thought about it until right now.
Great. Now I'm going to get Mustang Mach E ads from AdSense.
I know, yeah. Everything thinks you're very interested in buying one. I wouldn't be surprised if you get a phone call from a dealer tomorrow.
I did.
Mach E.
So according to Google AI, the chassis code is GE1. Global
General Electric 1.
Yeah, but that's
okay. Well, that makes sense because they're using the skateboard. Okay, I get it.
So
okay,
yeah. I did that. I did that in an incognito browser. Haha, take that, cookies.
Join a Mustang. I'm gonna join a Mustang forum and then add like your body style and put GE1.
Yeah. So there is something funny. I asked Siri when the Mach E came out, and the way she pronounces it is hysterical. So listen to this. Hey Siri, when did the Mustang Mach E come out?
The Mustang introduced on November.
It was too choppy. What did it say?
It says the Mustang Match.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't even use the hyphen or anything.
It doesn't even go dash E.
Yeah, MACHE with no dash, silent E. The Mustang Match came out in 2020. And I'm like, wow.
I mean, Greg, you should pipe down. You are one letter away from being a Mach E.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm way too French for that, so I'm good.
On that note, I have to use.
I'd rather be French than a Mach E. Let that sink in.
Wow, that's a statement.
that's the biggest one.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I guess you would rather submit to German rule than.
And look, as long as I keep my crepes, my cheeses, and my breads, I'm fine. Just leave me alone. Have my territory. Just give me the delicious things, and I'm good.
That's fair.
I don't care. I have, much like the French, I have too many cigarettes to smoke and too many important things to do.
Yeah, I know. Away. I would also feel very okay with everything going around me if I had 6 months off a year. I'd be like, yeah, guys, does it really matter? Anything that happens, they're gonna take your front lawn. I'm like, I don't really need it. I just kind of hang out, let them have it. I would have a way more lax attitude if that same thing was happening. Like, the government owns this now, and I'd be like, can I still use it? And they're like, yeah. Oh yeah.
Whatever. Do I have to pay a shit ton of taxes? No, you already do that. All right, well, fine, cool. We're good here.
Yeah, nothing changes. You're like, yeah. If you make your whole society super lazy, they're gonna be pretty okay with everything you do.
Yeah, exactly. Can we keep that big metal spire over there? Yeah, that can stay. All right, we're fine.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty. We like it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Whatever. No, what was the other thing I was gonna say?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Fuck. The Mach E. Oh, the thing that used to bother me. I don't know if you ever played Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. I believe 2.
Yes.
On PS2.
You mean the best one?
Yes, it was awesome. Obviously, many hours spent. It's what has me have both internal and external wood for the Murcielago.
Hell yeah.
Everything. But speaking of AI or synthetic voices reading things wrong, it used to bother the hell out of me and my friends. But it would be like they were in pursuit of a Corvette Z06 every time, and it was like, dude, because it's not even AI. It's it was before somebody had to record that, and not one person was like, people say 06 actually. I mean, they're not wrong. The voice actress read Z06, but considering it was a car I was driving a lot in the game, and that you couldn't do a race without getting chased by the cops, you had to hear Z06 every time, and you'd be like, it's not that. And especially we're kids and being like, stop.
Yeah, that drove me up a wall when I heard it. Absolutely. I'm just like, come on.
It makes me wonder. I don't remember if they even tried to pronounce Murcielago, if they just said Lamborghini. I'm sure they did.
I forget at this point.
They had to, because there's no way.
It's been 20 years. I don't even remember. It'd probably longer, actually.
Yeah, if the voice actors couldn't get 3-letter number alphanumerics correct, there's no way she's getting Murcielago.
Yeah,
there's no freaking way.
The zero chance.
Yeah. I mean, heck, the Lamborghini Gallardo was that for many years for many people, until somebody along the line was like, it's actually Gallardo because it's 2 L's, and the Italians kind of Y those 2 L's, and they're like, oh yeah, and now but of course Akon freaking really cemented Gallardo into pop culture because it was in the freaking chorus of Smack That, and it was like Lamborghini Gallardo. And it was like,
you would have thought Eminem as a lyrical genius would have been like, yo, dude, it's Gallardo. What are you doing?
Right. Somebody would have been like, but it was too late. I guess in the rap terms, they'd already put it on wax. So
yeah, whatever.
I don't think they were putting things on wax by the time Smack That came out, but I'd like to think they still were referring to it as that. They put it on wax.
Yeah. And then the really old guy in the room was like, well, what do you mean? Are you talking like an Edison von phone?
Yeah.
Like, what's the...
They're like, I don't know what it means. Just people always say it.
He's like, oh no, it's just a cool thing to say. Like, oh, all right. You don't know what you're talking about. Sounds good. Cool.
I'm trying to think if there any other, because there's a lot of pop culture like songs and stuff that have gotten car names pretty wrong, but like people wouldn't know them otherwise. I'm trying to think.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm sure. I mean, I'll tell you one artist that was really good at it and helped bring Lexus to big fame in the '90s was Biggie, because he was always the one talking about Lexus hopping in the GS3. I got the Chronic by the tree. Like,
that's true.
He was always putting Lexus into his songs.
Yeah,
because it was like cool. It was hip. It was new. It wasn't a Mercedes. It wasn't a BMW.
Yeah,
wasn't anything like typical rappers were rapping about. And he was just like, oh, these cars are cool. They're luxurious. They're from another country. They also look dope. I'm going to put them in my songs.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
That's true. That's a really good point. Trying to think. There's a Lloyd Banks song that somehow rhymed like faster with NASCAR. And it's a really bad.
Oh yeah.
It's forced. Like Chad just mentioned, Eminem kind of bends the pronunciation of words to make them fit, and I was like, I'm fine with that, but like sometimes it's like, yeesh, you really crammed that one in there.
You're forcing that one.
I don't know. Anybody in the comments remember any other? I'm trying to think, because like I'm thinking of music videos that I watched, and it's like there was this Jay-Z and Beyonce video where they're just running from the cops in a Vanquish, but they never talk about it.
Oh yeah, Bonnie and
Clyde. Yeah, that's true. You do look kind of like the Parappa the Rapper right now. I mean, nobody said that, but it's Chad said Greg looks like he's about to attend a rap battle at his famous ski chalet.
Parappa the Rapper, great game.
Good reference. Yeah, if your hat was red,
very good reference. PS1, that's a throwback.
What an interesting game. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of great games that came out on that console. Now we're just going.
I know we're way off, but I mean,
I love gaming.
I know, same here, and I just wish kids are never gonna know, but that's a good thing probably because they're fine with whatever. But that was back in the days when a game had to be finished and good before they could release it, and so it's like you were pretty much everything was a hit. Like Not everything, obviously, but like you got a finished game, a thought out game.
Yes.
Somebody had tested it, so and so forth.
Right. Because you had to. That you didn't have the internet. You had a console with a cartridge or a CD. Right. You fucked up.
If there was a glitch, it was a glitch.
If
there's a glitch, it was a glitch forever. I mean, that's why there's so many exploitable, N64 glitches and stuff like. But that was such a cool time because of that. It was like, oh, if you know the secret, it was like this, and now it's like, it's just not the same, And like games change too fast.
Warzone got a new map.
Yeah. Ooh. And people even remember like, man.
Oh, do not get me started with fucking
back
Activision.
In 2016, and you're like,
they are the poster child for being like, does the game work? No, it absolutely does not work. They're going to hate this. Fantastic, send it. The whole Black Ops 6 integration. Holy shit!
I haven't even tried.
A lot. I don't anymore because it's such dog shit.
Yeah, I've been trying to play Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 on console, and boy, is that just difficult. That game is not ready for release. And even still, it's been out since like November.
Well,
and I mean, I know it's only a couple of months, but it's like, do they just not know? Like, aren't they getting bug reporting? It's like, it's insane.
Oh no, they know.
Like how much they're not. It'd be one thing if it was like, oh, it's a little funny. It's like, no, there's a bug that makes it when you launch the game. First of all, it loads forever, even though it's largely based online. That it doesn't recognize your controller, so you have to go home and then go back into the game, hope it reconnects, and then it works. And usually after like 30 or 40 minutes of gameplay, you can finish a mission completely unresponsive and there's nothing you can do. And then it doesn't count that. And you have to go through the whole launch process again. It's like...
That's so ridiculous.
It's so impressive, like what they were able to do with the real world portion of it. It's just, I think it was too ambitious too soon. I think they were... And it's also funny, they named it 2024 and released it at the total tail end of 2024 and it doesn't work. Like, just hold off on it, tack another year on, and, release it. I would have much rather waited.
For these guys.
I would have much rather waited. I mean, like I take game delayed more than I do. Here it is. We're still working on it. Like, it's an annoying world we live in.
The thing is that the people who are getting it right are indie developers. Because now more than ever, there are tools available to if you want to make a video game. What is it? Oompaville or what have you is releasing a horror-based game. And like, I got to give credit where it's due. Epic and Fortnite with their integration with the new Unreal Engine.
And that was cool, actually.
And
the way that they like updated the graphics, it was like, this is insane.
It's not even what they did with the Unreal Engine itself. Fortnite has I'm forgetting exactly what it's called, but it's way more than just like a sandbox experience in that people can go in and create complete, finished, full games.
Yeah.
In this, with like, it's almost like instead of typing out the code, it's almost like you're guided like a C++ back in the day. That's literally in 8th grade. My freshman year was the last time I messed with code. But like, people are going in and they're like, they made Fortnite, in the Fortnite universe, they were throwing in Call of Duty maps or whatever, and like some of the stuff these people were making were visually incredible. And like, to bring it back to kind of an automotive focus, did you, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but did you guys see anything about the new Assetto Corsa Evo beta launch?
Yeah.
I saw that it was a thing, and I heard not great stuff.
I just saw like trailer footage and stuff. I'm familiar with it. I have not played it.
So Assetto Corsa Evo is in a similar vein to your Forzas and your Gran Turismos, but the whole like selling feature of the game is that it's open world, and it's open world on real roads around the Nürburgring.
That's cool.
So okay, that's dope.
So it's like,
it's
like Horizon, but not a fantasy area.
Correct. So the beta, they said for a while that the beta wasn't going to include this open world element because obviously if that's they're taking their time, but they were going to launch like a beta version where you have cars, you have tracks, you have some limited customization. You can look at like the license testing and all this other sort of stuff. And when it launched, it was like 6 playable cars and 5 tracks. And this isn't like a free beta or anything. It was like $32. And people are like,
that's a lot for that.
And people have to understand betas are. We've gotten spoiled with like these games that are still quote unquote in beta, like Escape from Tarkov, still in its beta phase. It's not the final game, and it's been around for what, 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
BeamNG Drive.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
BeamNG Drive, similar thing. It's like an alpha still, I think, technically.
You know, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure they keep it in that state as long as possible for legal reasons or what have you. But like people Definitely. Are like. You told me I was going to get like these customizations, all this other sort of stuff. I understood that the big thing of the game wasn't going to be in it, but it would be cool to check this stuff out. And then it was like, you're Assetto Corsa. You have the first game, which has been modded to high hell, right?
For true.
And then you have Assetto Corsa Competizione, which I absolutely love because I'm a GT3 nerd, and they have it. And they also are one of the few games that aren't sim rig specific, that you can play on a controller, that have the Mustang GT3 car for obvious reasons. And you have all of this like stuff in your library, and they had like a generic 4-cylinder noise, they had a generic V8 noise, they had a generic like high-pitched V8 or whatever, and it was just like,
yeah, you think they'd port something over that already exists.
You know, it's one of those things like the games and their launches are terrible. And like one of the companies that is getting it right is shit. I'm going to waste a lot of time trying to remember the name. But at any rate, the developers who came out with Delta Force, they're like, no, it's 100% a beta, and as such, it won't have controller support. But they're going through, and they had the beta, they fixed stuff. They had the beta, and now they're in like a soft launch. Still no controller support, annoyingly. Which is like, if you're going to make a game, you got to make it console friendly if you expect to make money.
Yeah, if you want to move numbers, for sure.
So,
yeah.
It's like coming out with a new electric car and naming it a Mustang, am I right?
I mean,
yeah, way to wrap it back in. That was excellent transition. Well done, sir.
I mean, in a sense, yes, because you did all the like lazy marketing, and it's like all the hard actual like work that you had to do. You're like, nah.
Yeah. But to Greg's point of gaming, I think indie developers get it right because they can't afford not to, and big studios can.
Look at Lethal Company. Lethal Company literally destroyed everything a couple years ago. And it was awesome. It is the simplest game, and everyone's like, "This game is so much fun."
Yep, it's amazing. There's so much to discuss in that world, but it was nice to walk down memory lane of some PS2 and PS1 stuff.
Yeah.
Are there any indie car makers that we feel in that same sort of like, in that same sort of vein, that are really sort of getting it right? I mean, if you're a car maker, you're not indie, but in that sense of like going up against like a GM, a VW, a Toyota, a Ford, are there any like small time car makers that are really kind of getting it right these days, or at least trending in the right direction? Do we think
it's going to be a controversial take, but I say Tesla. I mean, there's a company that didn't exist. I know that they have build quality. We know. But the point is, they went from zero in the biggest this is not a market you can just enter. You can't just start selling cars.
Yeah.
And now they're a household name. Everybody wants one or thinks something of them. I think that from a company that didn't exist 20 years ago, or because we're getting close there, but to what they are now is nothing short of impressive. The only other things I can think of are foreign brands. You get all the new Chinese stuff that's going to be coming around. I know we have VinFast now. A lot of the
BYD,
a lot of the other stuff we've been promised for years, like the Elio.
So the Elio, you mean vaporware?
Right. I'm just saying, like,
wait, someone really named a car after rectangular pizza? I'm actually interested.
That's right. Yes.
It's a funny looking car too, but
it sure
it's
is.
Definitely like it's a great question. I hope you have an answer, because my only other answer I have is extreme bespoke manufacturers like Koenigsegg and Pagani. But given, I know that price point is insane, but they release amazing cars considering the age of the company. And it's not like America's funny. We used to have like 4,000 car manufacturers. Now we have like 6, or whatever it is. And meanwhile, beer has gone the other way. We used to have a bunch, and then we had like 4, and now we have a bunch again. But beer is so much easier to start making a lot of than a car.
Yeah.
So you
can do it in your garage.
Right. It's almost impossible without, again, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos type of money to just start manufacturing cars. I mean, think about all of the weird laws alone. You'd have to have a guy full time reading, regulations. And it would I can't imagine the expense of just going, hey, this is a pretty tapped market. I think I'm going to enter it. It's
right. But in Tesla's case, I agree with you in the sense with Tesla, but in the other sense, it was an untapped market. They were really the first to push EV.
Well, insist, I would say. They were like, if you want one, it's electric.
They really tied into EV, quote unquote, that techie crowd. That we've mentioned it a bunch, but Tesla is to cars what Apple was to phones.
Absolutely, and that's why they hired all their software guys. They made the iPhone of cars, and I'm right at the perfect time. I mean, this was when you could get used to, or people were legit excited and watching phone keynotes. I mean, I know I'm a nerd. I'm kind of in the industry, and I still do. But I mean, I remember every year you were like, they're going to blow us away. And all of a sudden there's a car that can do that stuff too. Like it was insane. I mean, especially at the time, if you're looking at 2012, first Model S, the tech that was in cars versus what it had and could do was like, it was insane. It was nothing short. I mean, I remember being like, this might be the coolest thing ever. And I hadn't even driven one yet. Just going to the dealership and moving your finger around on the gigantic screen, which again, they also pioneered. They think about it. Ever since then, every manufacturer's been like, we need to make bigger screens, and in some. Oh,
that's another thing about the Mach E. It's like, let's have a huge screen, but a volume knob. So that screen can be 12 times as expensive to replace.
Right. I did not really like the screen. Also, this is an actual review of that car. The other thing I kind of am fascinated about, like if you have a Prius or any car, really, I mean, I don't in Corvettes, you kind of want to see like, hey, what's my MPGs in that it's kilowatt hours over miles or whatever it is. Teslas have various ways of displaying like a graph of how much energy you're using and kind of giving you a rough idea of it. Ford's was A, hard to get to, and B, not very good. Like you had to go through several menus and you got to this page, which I always said it just says really big on the top, where is my energy going, with a question mark. And then it showed like only 3 categories. And like I said, every time I do it, I'm like, yeah, where's it going? Like, it's like, it wasn't just like a, hey, efficiency screen. It was like, where's it all going? It's leaving. It's like, stop. It was a horrible UI decision. And like
That's
I said,
really funny,
it
actually.
would just give you like, hey, your air conditioning's eating a little bit more electricity than last drive. You're like, I know, show me the real drive. It did show you it's a little number in like the bottom left, and it like again you had no reference to, is that good or is that bad, and the whole
it's like a constant panic screen.
I know.
It's just like, where's it going?
I don't know. And you're like, I'll tell you what, you better do something about it because it's going. It's like it's and an electric car, you're already worried. You're like, there's only so much, I can't get like I gotta figure this out fast. And if you took that screen seriously, you'd have me in Arizona with the windows up and the AC off so I could stop the energy from leaking out. It was silly. I mean, I know that the new like Dodge has the new big screen too, and I think the new F-150s and 250s and whatever, so on and so forth, have a version of that large vertical screen.
Since you mentioned trucks, I distinctly remember this. Dodge was ahead of the game in the Ram, to where the trucks they had with the big screen, and it didn't beat you over the head like a lot of screens. It still had all of the physical buttons. It still was
right.
It was
Uconnect is fantastic.
And when they came out with they didn't come out with it, but the 2019 Ram was light years ahead of the equivalent F-150 from an interior perspective. It was it was so much nicer. It made Sync whatever look redonkulously dated. And like all the switch gear and the big, like the Ford still had an era of that Tonka toy kind of vibe going both on the interior and the exterior and stuff like that, which, to be fair, dated really quick.
Right.
Yeah.
But to your point of like, quote unquote, the indie car that's manufacturer that's kind of doing things right and kind of taking it, is what I would say is number one is the Hyundai Kia.
Yes.
When you look
I wouldn't call them indie, but they are small, and they were frowned upon. I mean, they were a laughing stock. An 04 Kia Rio, talk about a car that would dissolve in your driveway. I mean, it just, I mean, a laughing stock.
You press one switch and like 7 others pop out. It was, but like Tesla didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right.
Hyundai did. And they made,
unfortunately,
crap, horrible cars.
Yeah.
And now look at Hyundais and Kias are some of the nicest cars to sit in. Hyundai has the N division that we talked about. Mm-hmm. You know, they went from making utter crap to now being a serious performance player in the sport compact world, which is dying. But hey, credit where it's due.
Yeah, still a player in the market, yes.
They turned all of that into Genesis.
Right.
You know, you want to talk about
a legitimate luxury.
You want to talk
brand.
about a hard market to crack, harder than I would argue even the automotive industry as a whole is the luxury market, just because of the level of snobbery that you are dealing with.
Yeah.
And to where of all the luxury brands, I love what Genesis is doing more than anyone else. And I love the fact that there's like going to be whatever their N is coming soon, corresponding, I think, within a year or two of their GTP car, which is I'm stoked to see. And if you don't speak degenerate sports car nerd, literally Genesis is going to be racing at Le Mans in the top category. They're going to be racing in the Daytona and Sebring endurance races in the top category. Like,
that's cool.
You know,
I already heard Genesis talk. Yes.
You know, but like again, like Genesis went from
racing back,
or Hyundai went from making the shit boxes to making good, reliable cars, albeit boring, to making. They came out with the Genesis sedan and coupe.
As a Hyundai though, it used to be
right, but that's what I'm saying.
Hyundai Genesis, and the right move they made was isolating it like a Lexus. You know, being like totally different deal. Don't associate it with that because Hyundai still means cheap to most people. It's going to take a while for that to be
right, but they actually showed that they could do it, as opposed to going through the entire effort of launching a brand new brand. Now, I remember sitting there I was looking at a Genesis coupe way back in the day, and
me too.
They're cool. We were talking about the sedan, and I forget the exact specifics because it was a while ago. But the sedan had a stereo system equal to a Rolls-Royce stereo system, in that, like, from audio quality to all the things that car stereo nerds like sort of geek out over or whatever. And it was like, see, we can do this and work with these people and stuff like that. So like, and to the point where like the Genesis luxury car, like, well, I shouldn't say the Genesis luxury cars, that's massively redundant. But Genesis entire lineup, and I cannot say this about any other brand really, is sharp, good looking. It's
I totally agree.
You know, so,
and I don't know if you've been driven any of them, but so far every one of them that I've driven has been like, wow, this is a good option, and especially at the price point. Now, I still have the bias of remember seeing the first Hyundai Genesis on the dealership, and you're like, I mean, this is probably an exaggeration, but you're like, well, no, it was, you know, here's a Tucson, and then here's this for $80,000. I'm not I'd be embarrassed to tell somebody I spent 80 grand on a Hyundai. Now, obviously, we're way past that, and it's just a known thing. I see them personally everywhere here in Wichita. We have a great Genesis dealership, but and you guys remember I went to their grand opening. It was the one with the champagne swinging lady from the ceiling and stuff. It was awesome. I mean, it was like, whoa, this brand, it's like this brand rules. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And like the GV80, I'm like, I would be hard pressed not to buy one of those over an X5. Or Mercedes GL any day. I was like, it's better equipped. It drives nicer. It actually feels nicer, and they don't nickel and dime you with options like the German guys do. Like you pretty much, with some exceptions, it's pretty loaded. They've gotten that going on right, whereas the German guys have done it for so long that they know once they've got you, you'll pay extra for this, you'll pay extra for this, and the foreign people are just including it. I mean, there's so many cars that have included options that, these other guys are still charging for. When you think climate or adaptive cruise control should be standard on a car that costs $90,000. Like, that's not a crazy opinion to me. I mean, like if a Corolla can come with it, it should be standard over the $90,000 mark. Switching gears though, and I did remind it from in the comments, the Mark said it. Rivian is a great example as well. I know we're kind of talking about electric stuff, but talk about a company that's newer than Tesla and has quickly become not only cool brand, they did something different. They kind of associated themselves with outdoors, which is totally off the mark for electric cars. Because what's the biggest fear of having electric cars? Being trapped in the woods with nowhere to charge it. And they went
right.
full into this, take your truck, overlanding. And, once they came out with the R1S, that's when I really started to see them everywhere. I think the R1T is really cool. But the thing that I know it's a sales success, especially on the small microcosm that is Wichita, is so I take my daughters to school, and you got to look at the school pickup line. It's whatever. It's basically all of the moms have Denali's, Range Rovers, Teslas, or Rivians. Anything else, and it's almost like odd. The entire parking lot is just those things. And then there's me in my Prius. But it's like, I look around and you're like, dang, now I already associate, I'm like, an R1S is a rich mom's car. And that's not a bad reputation. Because guess what moves units. And the best part is what they're coming out with. I don't know if it's later this year, a couple years down the road. Now they're going to have kind of entry-level models, just like a Tesla did. When they have the R2S, I believe, that's just a mini version of the R1S at a more accessible price point. How could you go wrong? I mean, that's a sure thing. As long as they can actually deliver similar quality and all that stuff. But that's a company that I really don't know their history, but that's a company that kind of came out of nowhere.
And they own Bugatti.
Oh yeah, do they?
They went.
That's
Rimac.
God damn it! Yeah. They need to stop. Like, to quote Jeremy Clarkson, they need to stop naming these things after like lady shavers.
Chad will like this one. Another company that came out of nowhere, and I just thought of Ineos.
Yeah.
Now, given they only make one thing, but
yes,
it does follow my formula of you need to have world-changing type of money to just go, I'm gonna start making cars. And Ineos is a chemical manufacturer, and that dude's like a billionaire several times over. So it was possible, but I mean, that's another car that didn't exist, even last year or whatever. It is possible if you're a billionaire. So
yeah, you just have to have the right cash flow, which
and like cars,
next to nobody has.
It's amazing how many rich people are like don't care about cars. It's insane. Sometimes you're like, don't you just want a nicer one, even if you don't like them? Don't you want like?
No, because there's no excitement in cars because they can buy companies at that point. It's less about the purchase of the car because they can get literally any car on the planet. It's about data manipulation. It's about company purchase. That's the exciting shit for billionaires. Like that's the cool stuff for them. They don't care about cars. They literally have or could have all of them. So
that's true. That does take some of the fun away. There's nothing to look forward to. You're like, I could have it right now. Whatever the most expensive thing they make, I could have it. And you're like, well, that does make it less cool.
Right, exactly. It's just like, oh, Koenigsegg, I could I could buy that Koenigsegg, or I could buy Koenigsegg.
Yeah, right.
Literally the company, like.
But
that's the money these people have.
It's the content creator in me, but I'm like, well, why didn't one of these buy one, hire a film team, and just do something awesome with them, even if it's Whistle and Diesel type shit? I'd be like, that's crazy. I'm glad somebody did that. There was an old channel called Tax the Rich that would do really cool stuff. If you guys remember.
Tax the Rich.
And great. I was very fond of their
stuff. Gymkhana-ing an F40. It was awesome.
The guy wakeboarding on an F50 wing. The XJ220, like burning out through fire. It was like, this is awesome.
It was sick.
I know, it was unnecessary. It was like, I'm so happy that this exists. And like, obviously it was a faceless, nameless guy doing it on his own private property, but it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So I think people have figured it out since then because of the property and Google Maps. But like, it ended up being this like multi-millionaire person. It's like, well, of course it was, because he's got access and probably owns an XJ220 and an F40 and F50. Like, of course he's rich. Come on.
When you have more than one F50 and tie tow hooks to the front of them and burn out tug of war and reverse each car on a car that's just so irreplaceable. I mean, that's like, I figured he was next level rich.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, until Hoovy becomes a billionaire, we won't be seeing cool stuff like that. But he did take his Bugatti out in our latest snowstorm, and that was pretty cool. He didn't make it out of the driveway, but I'm happy he did that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
That's the funny thing. I'm part of a couple groups, and one of them is Georgia-based, thanks to Keith, another guest and frequent viewer of the channel and stuff. And I'm just seeing all these Georgia people like, well, I guess the car meet isn't happening. And I'm like, how much snow is that? You pansies.
Like, it's a little chilly.
It's like, I would drive my car on summers in that snow. I'm not saying it's smart, but
I know you gotta. It's almost. I know it'd be a lot of work, but the juxtaposition again is so funny because Ed Bolian pulled his Bugatti out of the garage and, like I said, snow that doesn't come up to the wheel itself, and took a picture like, taking the Bugatti out in the snow. And then you look at Tyler's post of it absolutely buried up to the grill in snow because he tried to move it. It's just such an extreme thing. Like, Ed, love him. He pulled it out and it was a great photo. And then Tyler's full sends it out of his garage and just plows through snow until it gets stuck. It's and it's funny they happened on the same day that it was these are two different versions of doing snow in the Bugatti.
One of these is actually trying. The other one is the photo op.
Right. And guess what? I'm pretty sure Ed might have a larger following on Instagram. I'm not sure, but it was still, it was funny because they are great photos, but it was just the hilarity of the same car being treated so differently in much deeper snow.
Oh, yeah.
He did this similar thing with the Countach when he first got it because it snowed and the car wasn't worth $660,000 at the time. Not that it was cheap, but I remember him doing donuts in the snow, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's crazy, dude!" And
that car, I think 3x went over his ownership of it.
It was insane. He got such a deal because he bought the Diablo and the Lamborghini, the Countach together, and I mean, I don't know if a better luck of the draw somebody arbitrarily decided that these cars are worth a shitload now. It's in this very quick span of his ownership. Because even when he got the deal, it's not like they were cheap. It was
no.
Okay, that, and I was when you told me the number, which I cannot share, but I was
no, that's fine.
I was that's a steal. And then when they both, tripled basically in value, I was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Diablo market was a lot slower. The Diablo market, it still isn't to that level.
It's not the Countach level at all.
I don't think it ever will be either, because the Diablo was cool, but it was never the same as the Countach, and
it's not the same poster car. I mean, it's got the doors.
No,
I mean, I think it was a little easier to drive, probably because it was a roadster. But the
Countach market basically. I mean, it basically doubled and tripled in the span of 5 years, which is insane. Because they were for so long they were just seen as this
worthless,
ostentatious, hard to live with car, and
expensive to maintain, undrivable,
right,
and fire prone. Yeah,
they're not any of those things.
Yeah.
They're
well,
like,
I mean, they aren't
when they're
anymore.
well maintained.
Yeah, with the internet and people knowing like what shops to trust and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like I had a friend in Wichita and his uncle had one. Never drove it, but it's the same car as Tyler's, white Anniversary with red interior. And I remember I was like, man, it always just sits on the lift, and like it was the only cool car he had. But it was such an extreme one, and I was just like, man. And he's like, I don't know, I'm gonna sell it. And I think he sold it for $80,000, a real Countach. A real one.
That's
and I was
crazy.
like, I even told him, I was like, dude, you remember when your uncle sold that Countach for like 80 or 90 grand? He's like, yeah. And I was like, do you know what they're worth now? The same car, like across the board. It's like,
yeah, like
they
500.
Yeah, a like a ratty one is 500, but like a concourse one is low to mid sixes. It's in well within our lifetime. It's insane to watch that sort of thing. And I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. There are cars that are more so than Mustangs, Corvettes, and Ferraris. Whatever. There are cars that are born special that we're just going to do that. The 05, 06 Ford GT, that was a sure thing. That was
for sure.
You could not miss buying one of those for $150 in 05, 06.
No. What are they going for now?
$450. It depends on the thing. If you get a Heritage, they're $650 because that's 06 and that's the Gulf livery. Some of them $7. I mean, it just depends on mileage and yada yada. But it's like, and of course everyone's sticklers about it because they only had 4 options, and it's like the low option cars are really valuable and the high option cars are really valuable. And I don't know.
Well, have you seen? Have you seen ZR1 prices?
Paint Polestar.
I did.
Gulf
Did you see that graph where it just lays it up against like the GT3 RS, the SF90, which is so not in its price range, and so, like the Revuelto and everything else. Yes, the ZR1 is not a cheap car, but it's doing the core.
Sorry, I misspoke. I should have. We spoke about this. Not the C8, the C7s.
Oh, yeah.
They're going for. I've seen like they're starting to go for $250,000.
Especially the stick cars, yeah.
But
it's crazy.
That's freaking nuts.
Because it's also and Porsche's had this too. These guys, you got that's the most special one of the last of the front engine cars. They will always be unobtainable. As far as that goes, I think they're going to continue to go up because of that whole. It's just like a 993 Turbo S. That's the best one of the air-cooled Porsches, and so
it will always go up.
They will always go up because that was before everything changed, and this is the engine moving to the back. I mean, it's not a small change. All Porsche did was. It'd be cool if these didn't overheat in traffic. That's all they did. And then everyone's like, "No, don't get the water away from here." And Chad and I have talked about it. I think the C7 ZR1 represents, as far as we humans, is the maximum of what you can OEM do with a front engine car on rubber. That's it. That is as much as you can reasonably do. To get any more performance out of it, you had, without compromising, they had to move to mid-engine. It was just.
Oh, they could have slapped some turbos on it, gave it 1,000 horsepower, and
they
tried.
But that's the thing. Is it if you drive a C7 ZR1, it is not lacking. The power department is not the problem. You don't go.
What I'm saying is
it would compromise something. It was like, well, now it's not as fast around the track because you're freaking wrestling it the entire time.
Right.
I remember that my first thought of ever driving one is I thought, this isn't going to be that crazy. I drive a Hellcat. This only has 50 more horsepower.
Yeah, but it's like 1,000 pounds lighter.
Well, yeah, it's like a Mustang thing. But it was like
Mach
the
E.
Hellcat couldn't put it down. You were scrolling around, and that's the fun of the car, and I will never back down on that. But there's a big difference in that amount of horsepower that put it down. And you're like, oh my goodness, that is a crazy car.
Well, Elliot, as two individuals who've had that sort of horsepower in our lives, we can relate to that sort of methodology as opposed to Captain All-Wheel Drive over here.
That was so unnecessary.
Totally
He's had
worth
big horsepower rear-wheel drive. He had the Aston Martin. I wouldn't say.
Let me back up a bit. He did have a car that theoretically had 630 horsepower at the crank.
Theoretically,
we never put it on a dyno.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you went from every mod saying that it added 30 horsepower, and you just added that to the base number.
It's an ESS. It was an ESS supercharger kit, and ESS makes redonkulously good stuff. So like
So
when
you
they
cut
say
their numbers, yeah.
so when they say I think it was even called like the 630 kit or some shit.
Yeah, it was a 600 kit that was then modified by ESS to be a 625 kit. So it was a supercharged E90 that in theory had about 630 horsepower and basically zero torque. But either
right,
way,
so those are flat plane, aren't they?
No, they're cross plane.
They're
I
like,
don't know why they're just high revving cross planes. I don't know why.
Yes,
they were flat plane.
They're
it was like $8,000 or something, right?
It's 8,400 RPM.
Ow.
I know, which is why I'm still so interested in buying one. It's just because like, oh, V8, like, oh yeah, what are you gonna rev to? Oh, 5, 6, 7. No, right. 8,400, and I'm just like, wow, thank you, Germans. That was definitely worthwhile.
The Maserati.
You can make an F-150 do that. I'm just saying.
I know.
the Maserati is 75 or 77, and I think it sounds nuts too in that same way. It almost sounds like once you get into that top range, you're like, I'm sorry, car.
But yeah, when I drove the GT350 on track at Pocono, and the guy was just like, oh yeah, keep your foot in it, keep your foot in it, keep your foot in it, and I'm like passing 8, and he's like, no, you're still good. I'm just like, when do I shift? Like this is
it's
How many valves have to come out of the hood before I shift?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's just yelling at you, and you're just like, this shouldn't be happening in a V8 car. In an S2K, sure, I understand that this is going to happen because it was built to do this. But in a
RX-8,
huge
whatever.
V8 Mustang, I'm just like, this doesn't feel correct.
And like I said, it's the same kind of wave of early naturally aspirated, not early. Ferrari's pre-mandated all turbos. It's very similar in the fact that you're like, I'm at 5,000 RPM and nothing's happening. Like, it's like, I got on it and we're what I would consider all the way through the rev range, as a, Corvette guy. And I'm like, welp. And then all of a sudden, and you're like, oh my goodness.
That's the whole reason people supercharge the E9X range in the M3s is because, or in the M cars is because it's just like, well, you have to be able to get any
low down torque
underneath 6,000 RPM.
That's crazy. Are they reliable supercharged? Because I feel like that's spinning a centrifugal supercharger at pretty fast.
They are actually. They're quite reliable. Again, it's the same thing with all of those. As long as you have the rod bearings done, the throttle actuators could go at any point because they're made of plastic and they're not really. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you replace them with the metal ones. They'll all end up going regardless. But as long as the rod bearings are done, those cars are pretty solid, and that engine is really solid.
Did your car retain the ITBs?
What's that?
Did your car retain the ITBs?
I don't remember.
Did they make a single throttle body kit for that? I mean, sure they do.
I've seen them out there
because it would actually make it easier just having one big port instead of 8.
Yes. But I want to say it didn't, but I don't really remember. Honestly, I got to go back and look.
I told you guys that I went to a Cars and Coffee in Scottsdale. Again, different time, different trip. But a girl drove an A92. It had like the monster slash across one of the headlights. I mean, the car had been through it. But me and my friend were like, "That's interesting that a girl has an E92 and she got up in the morning and came to this Cars and Coffee, and we were kind of just lightly shooting the shit with her." We said something because we all know rod bearings, and I think it was either me or him. Just go, "Yeah, have you replaced the rod bearings on that?" And she goes, "Yeah, you want to see them?" And we were like, "What?" Yeah, and I was like.
I remember the story, yeah.
And she just was like, check it out. And she just kept them in a case in the trunk to show you how scored they were. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I hadn't seen them before, and I'm so glad that you had these as a
badge of honor for that car.
Yeah. It's also the best selling point. If you went to go sell that on any website, you show a picture of the old rod bearings, you're like, see? And yeah.
I don't have a receipt from the shop, but here are the old ones.
Yeah, like, trust me, they have been done.
Yeah. They're in the trunk.
Yeah. It's such a nuts engine failure that happens. Although, now that we've gone on in age, Z06's, the LS7 has valve drop issues, so that's not good.
But,
oh well. Stuff happens.
Yeah. Yes, very true.
I have this is not about mechanical reliability, but it's fascinating. In my parents' neighborhood, it's a Corvette story. Not really much of a story. Every day, there's a guy. They have a 3-car garage. To my knowledge, there's only like one car they keep like a Tahoe in it. Outside since it came out, like 2020, you got a brand new orange C8. Parked it lengthwise, like across the garages, so that only one of the three was accessible, and then never moved it. And I'm talking about never moved it. Wind, rain, shine, snow, ice. It sat there. No matter what time of day I drove by, no matter what day of the week, that car, it's like he drove it from the dealership and parked it, blocking his own garages, and left it outside. And my dad and I just always, because I go to lunch with my dad a lot, we just joke that he's doing a paint test for GM, because like leaves and stuff are getting on it. It's just getting beat on by the sun. And one day, it went away. I have a picture on my Instagram because we got like 8 inches of snow, and there was a C8 with just piled up snow on there. I was like, this is the inside car, guys.
That's so weird. I don't understand
what's weird,
that at all.
It went away for like a month. And now in its place, this summer, he has now purchased a black C8, parked it lengthwise across both garages, and it hasn't moved since it arrived. I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, the battery's got to be way dead. Everything on this car is just like it. I have so many questions. A guy in my neighborhood did this with the BMW Z4, but those are worthless by comparison. I mean, I just don't get why you buy a brand new C8 and be like, boy, I can't wait to have this inconveniently parked in my driveway and then get snowed on. And what we've been dealing with, I know you guys are dealing with the weather now. We dealt with freezing rain and then like 6 to 8 inches of snow. So it is the hardest, packed down, heaviest stuff known to man. And it's like it snowed a week ago now, and there's still snow on the ground. And it's like the C8's just out there, like I imagine squatted because of all the weight on it. It's so confusing. I've just been. I wish I had outside C8 money. Don't get me wrong, but it's
you might have the true test. Take outside C8 off of someone's hands money.
Yes,
that's true, but he's not doing a very good job of hiding it. Let's say the car's hot. You're just leaving it right outside. And then also, like I said,
I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the guy clearly has more money than brains. Just say, hey, you're not doing anything with that car. What do you want for it?
I know. I've thought about. Unfortunately, I don't want a black C8. I would like his orange one, even with the paint fade, because I think that'd be a great one to take to Cars and Coffee. Be like, aren't these pretty new? Why is the clear coat coming off? And you're like, oh, funny story.
I mean,
this has 14 miles.
So you could always down the road wrap it, and you protect a pretty never gonna depreciate paint color, right? Like black is always
for sure
a good one. And then you could do whatever you want.
Trust me, don't get me wrong. If this guy was like wanted a song for it, but the fact that he keeps buying them makes me think there's something going on. I get if he was like, I bought a Corvette, I never really drove it. Oh well. And then he's like, I think I'm gonna get another one. That's the part that confuses me. If it was a different car, I'd kind of get it. But it's like he's like, man, I really miss having that one in the driveway. It was so cool.
Yeah.
At least people with Vipers and stuff go out and drink beer and look at it in their garage. Like this didn't make sense.
Yeah, that guy can't even look at it in his garage because it's outside.
Oh, exactly. It's confusing.
Well, speaking of the weather, I can't feel my toes anymore.
Yeah.
So
I imagine it's time to go in.
I think it might be time to go inside for me.
Yes.
All right, bring the camera. No, I'm sadly with Greg.
I'm on your guys' team. I got a slight cold I'm working on, so I'm ready.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize that.
Well, appreciate you
coming on with a slight cold.
Yeah, it's all good. But, thank you guys. It was a pleasure as always.
Absolutely.
Thank you everybody who's been watching and commenting. It's always fun to interact with you guys and you guys pop in fun ideas. And I'm assuming we'll do this again sometime, guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. And thanks for coming on as always.
Definitely.
Sorry.
And thank you for Chad. Thank you to Chad for actually putting on the podcast and having a rig that can do it.
Thank you, Chad. Chad does all the setup and stuff. He fights. He fights behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and I have a tick that just doesn't let me leave well enough alone. So like I made a minor change last week, and I was like, I can improve upon it. So I was like, all right, let me just set forth like 3 hours of work that didn't actually need to be done for myself, and let's go. So, but
it's like modifying cars, dude.
Oh God.
Exactly.
Oh,
all right. Well, thank you, fellas.
That's another hour that we don't have.
Right. I didn't want to get started,
but thank you to Elliott. Thank you to our guest of the year so far, Greg, on the show.
I like that I'm the guest and Elliott's not. That's great.
I mean, you guys. I think it's like you're up 2-1 in like the top of the first, bottom of the first.
Yeah.
But at any rate,
much.
Thank you guys. Thank you to everyone who commented, shared, did all the fun stuff. I appreciate everyone, and we will catch you in the next one.